Hello and welcome. I have a favorite guest back tonight with me. Larry Long is back. He is an activist, he is an educator, he is a songwriter, he is a singer. He is the executive director of the Community Celebration of Place. And he was a guest last year on my leadership series because he has been a real leader in this very eclectic field that we'll have him talk more about, and you'll understand more as we go. So welcome back, Larry.
It's good to be here.
You also have a wonderful new title as being a Smithsonian Folkway artist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of new, isn't it?
Yeah, I have 3 recordings out with the Smithsonian Institute with Folkway Records. And so there's a long lineage to that too. Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and Heidi Leadbelly and others are on that label. So
that's exciting.
So I'm pretty honored to be on it.
That's exciting. If I would go on a bit and list some more things about you, what would be on your list that I didn't mention? Because you're a busy guy and you've got your hands in a lot
I'm a grandfather. I have a granddaughter who's graduating from kindergarten, going into 1st grade, and then 2 of my children are graduating from college this year.
Oh, this year,
so
both of them.
One's from
Both
Tufts
your
University
daughters.
and one from the University of Minnesota.
Wow.
So I'm a pretty proud parent and granddad.
Big year,
Yeah.
a big year in the Long household. Well, one of the things you're working on really with big focus right now is the Elders' Wisdom Children's Song Program. Mm-hmm. And I've heard about it from many people and read about it, of course, but would you define it for the viewers? You're doing work with the elders and kids. Tell us more.
So we bring in elders into the classroom who are both long established and newly arrived that represent the many cultures and the faces of the children in the classroom. So it gives a chance for young people to hear the first-person narrative of those who've just arrived in the United States and those who've been here for quite some time. And then these elders will give their life story to students for about 30 minutes. And then every child in the class gets to ask them one question. And they're instructed how to ask an open-ended question, similar to what you do. And everything is recorded and then transcribed. And then we turn these first-person narratives into one-page narratives to be read, and we create songs to be sung. And we normally honor 3 to 4 elders at each community celebration. And these 3 to 4 elders cross lines of gender, class, and complexion.
And they're often people who have not been in the public eye. They've not been honored very often, probably most of them, correct?
Correct.
Might be a mentor in the school. It might be a policeman. I mean.
Yeah, actually, this year we've honored 2 police officers that work in school safety that children see often. So it gives the children a chance to understand who they are and why they chose the work they do. But sometimes, we honored this year Superintendent Johnson.
Right.
She was selected because of a lot of mentoring she does on the side in the school at Sanford Middle School. And so
That she does as a volunteer?
As she said to the students, when her job gets overwhelming and she gets stressed out, what she does is she gets in the car and she'll go into the classroom just to visit with children who restore her hope and give her guidance in terms of how to continue her work for the betterment of all children.
And we're talking about the woman who's the head superintendent of the Minneapolis Public Schools, right?
And Superintendent Johnson, her story unto itself is really remarkable. She was born in Selma, Alabama, and her uncle was part of the Courageous 8, some of the first people to register African Americans to vote in the South. And her grandmother was the first African American principal in the Minneapolis Public Schools. So in the summertime, she actually left Jim Crow and segregation, flew up north to see her grandmother. And she said that her mother would dress her up like Easter. And then she came up north, and then when she came back to school in the fall, the teacher would ask the students, "What did you do in the summer?" And she said, "Well, I flew up north to see my grandmother." And the teacher said, "Oh, no, you couldn't have." And called her mother and said, "I think your daughter's not telling the truth," because they had low expectation of black children. And because of that, that really influenced her in terms of building high expectations for all children.
So by her telling her story to these children, there are a lot of things happening, but one is, I'm guessing, the kids are getting some ideas about, I can do whatever I want to do.
Correct. And also what we found from a school psychologist, that we asked the children to write down 3 to 5 questions and to listen actively for half an hour without interruption.
And these kids are how old, Larry?
Well, it's the youngest is usually 3rd grade, but we mainly work within 4th grade on up, up through high school. And but the students can only select one question to ask. And what we've discovered is the question that they invariably ask is that which is most personal to them. So if a child is being bullied in school and the elder begins to address issues of difference and not treated well, that child will often ask the question, well, how did you handle this when you were being bullied, and what recommendations can you give to us? So it becomes a surrogate relationship of mentorship and empowerment.
So the teacher, too, is learning from the process, isn't she?
Correct.
In terms of what her kids need. And then you take, or who does the transcribing? I mean, there's a lot of work involved here in the middle of all this, isn't there?
It's a ton of work. So through my nonprofit, we contract out to a wonderful woman, Susan Budig, who, we record it and then we send her the audio file. She transcribes it.
Okay.
And these transcripts are from 12 to 20 pages in length. And through the process, I've written close to 1,000 songs now.
Would that be for 1,000 different schools?
1,000 different elders. And so hundreds of schools across the United States of America, because I've done this work.
So each elder gets his or her own song.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And each class has one elder. So at a celebration, you will have maybe 120 children performing for these 4 elders. And it's really wonderful because the children walk the elder down the aisle, and then they're seated like royalty up on stage by the children. And the children give the elders a rose and a photograph and appreciation. And in some schools, like for example, Hiawatha Elementary School in Minneapolis, they create every year a story quilt. So children create visual images based upon the timeline of an elder story, and then they create quilt squares, and they wrap the elder in their life story quilt, and they're sung to.
Wow.
It becomes quite emotional.
So there's this whole concept is spreading, isn't it? I read somewhere you said it's gotten to be a bigger and better program as it's gone, as it's evolved. But the things you can do with it,
correct,
kind of keep expanding. How did you, in the very beginning, think of this concept? Because it's such a win-win for.
Well, it really is a win-win-win, and through the process, it fits into almost every criteria of standards, and within education, it touches upon the social sciences and critical thinking and geography and world study, English. It just touches upon everything. So with teachers who who are creative and enjoy integrating community history and life into the school. It becomes a great bridge builder between community and school, plus fulfillment of standards.
And the idea for it came?
Oh, the idea. Well, the idea, I mean, it really came when I was a child. My father passed away when I was 13. And my grandfather became a very major figure in my life, in a sense. I mean, nobody can replace your father and mother, but he stepped in my father's shoes, and I really leaned upon him for guidance. And so it really started from that, a childhood struggle. And then I was very moved by Woody Guthrie for the same reason, because Woody's book, Bound for Glory, one of the finest books I've ever read. Everybody should read it.
Write that down.
Bound for Glory, but he talked about the hardships he went through as a child in Okemah, Oklahoma. And I attached myself to that story and also began to write my own songs in that tradition. And I found that I was writing songs to give thanks to individuals who made a difference in my life, like my grandfather and my mother, who I've written songs for.
And like Woody then.
And then I just then got brought into schools. Actually, I was brought into Oklahoma to honor Woody Guthrie in the 1980s, when Oklahoma, the Cold War was still on, and many people saw Woody Guthrie as an undesirable person because of the McCarthy era, and a friend of Pete Seeger's, who is still a dear friend of mine. So I went to Oklahoma, and I felt this need to bring Woody home. So it was really through that process I'm doing what I'm doing today. Oklahoma Board of Education adopted me, brought me into schools, but I found that I wanted to teach children how to write their own music in that tradition, even more so than to learn Woody's songs. So through that, I ended up going into Okemah and organized the first hometown tribute for Woody in 1989.
And that's continued, hasn't it?
And actually, one of the songs we wrote in 1989, just this year, became the official town song of Woody Guthrie's hometown of Okemah, Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's
and so
great.
all of these children who wrote it, share in that, in the glory of that.
It's so interesting to me in life how things evolve. You don't always set out and plan and say, I'm going to do this kind of a project. There's this sort of winding, interesting, evolutionary path, isn't there? For how
it's really
come to be.
It's what makes life wonderful.
And exciting.
My mother always raised us to, she was a very spiritually grounded person, and she raised all of us to look at those who come into our life for a reason, and that it's up for us to really, to find out what that reason is and what can we learn from it, and also to look at a cup half full, not half empty, but within that space that's not completely filled up, it allows for the opportunity for growth and for things to happen you never thought would if you're open to accept those possibilities.
I guess the Chinese have a character that means crisis, but it has two meanings, danger and opportunity. That's kind of like your mother's mindset, isn't it? Well, I have lots of questions.
Do you want to hear the song I wrote for my mother?
Well, of course. That'd be lovely.
I wrote a song for my mother, who passed away in 2005, and I made singing cards, and I was going to market them, but I decided that these cards, that sing when you open, and it was for Mother's Day. I'm now giving them away to organizations. So I gave it to breast cancer, the run they do at the Mall of America.
Right.
Well, I've given them hundreds of cards, and they're selling them with this song for my mother, but only 2 verses of it. And then I've been giving it to other organizations, 'cause my mother was that kind of a person. But the song goes, the full song. On the day that I was born, on the day I'm with you now, through these times that seem forlorn, standing on ancestral ground. You were there when I first spoke, you were there when I first stood. You are there to give me hope, you are there in all that's good. If I were to save the world, who on earth would save me? If not for you, then who am I? If what not for you, what would life mean? You're the breath inside the song. You're the note that lends an ear. You're the prayer that gives me calm. You free this heart from fear. Now here I am, the wheel has turned, holding you in my arms. Now here I am, the candle burns, listening to you gently call. Whenever I'm in need of friend, you are there to help me through. With a love that never ends now, here I am, I'm here for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. I have heard it before, and I just love that song. Did your mother get to hear it?
Yeah, she did.
She did. Oh, good.
She was in hospice care. I wrote it for her and sang it to her.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you nurture your creative juices, because you've touched on a few of the things you've done. Back in the 80s, he organized the Mississippi River cleanup. You had some wonderful things you did in South Africa. I mean, the list goes on and on. How do you, though, Larry, keep yourself energized in a way that you can keep coming up with projects and ideas and music and just keep it flowing?
I remain active and immerse myself in my world and those that I meet, and I just try to be attentive. I do run, and I do exercise, and I do meditate, and all of which gives me nourishment. I just feel very fortunate because at a young age I knew what I wanted to do, and I've been doing it and been able to make a living at what I love to do.
And that's
and
kind
I think
of
that's
rare.
the center of what keeps me going. But you have to be really attentive because this work happens with intentionality and being focused to relationships. And probably the biggest mistakes I've made at times in my life is when I've not been attentive to those relationships and cultivated and nourished them.
And do you mean relationships of people that you just may meet by chance, as well as relationships in your smaller circle? Are you including both those kind of relationships?
That's a good question. In terms of my work, it's being really attentive to the teachers, the needs of the teachers, because we really need to give support to those that teach our children. They're under so much pressure, state, federal mandates, plus the needs of children and families. So just to being attentive so I can be helpful to them and that this work doesn't get in the way of what they need to do, being attentive in that way. Also gratitude to thank people for their good work and to really acknowledge that and to give thanks to others.
And giving focus to other people through yourself, that's kind of a winning combination.
Yeah, and as I often tell people, I was born Southern Baptist and raised in the Jewish community. And rediscovered my relationship to the Creator in the Dakota Sweat Lodge. And found some peace to the teachings of Buddhist meditation, and I think spiritual journeying helps one as well to be open to possibilities of other cultures, what they have to teach us.
So many people that I meet want to do more than they're doing, and they talk about it, but they often kind of get stuck in the talking phase, I think, and don't do all the things. I mean, you're to me an example of someone who is one person making a big difference, and I don't know how other people, I guess, can get inspired by what you're doing, but what do you think it is that holds other people back from maybe doing what they could do, or fulfilling their potential?
Well, it's kind of a core value of Elders Wisdom Children's Song, and going back to Superintendent Johnson, she said to the kids, I mean, who would have thought that a little black girl from Selma, Alabama could become superintendent of the Minneapolis public school system? And she said, the reason that I knew I could do it is because I had people around me that believed in me and saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself. So when we bring in the generations together, that's community. And those of us who are a little bit more older and experienced have a chance to mentor and even in small ways to give encouragement to the potential that we see in others, and to encourage them to pursue it. In terms of myself, I do one thing. I try to do one thing really, really well, and I count on other people to do those other things really, really well. And then together,
team approach.
We become a much stronger community, and really building equity and acknowledging the fact that really no one is really better or less. We're here to really help each other become the best we can be for the generations yet to come.
Well, it's a winning approach. Behind you is a wonderful banner that you brought.
Yeah.
Tell us what it's about, because I'm sure people have been catching glimpses of it.
Well, the elders you see up here, each one of them we've written a song for. And I really like having these photographs up, because you can talk about diversity and honoring many nations of people. But when you see these photographs, you don't need to speak about it. You can just tell in the faces that the intentions of this program is to really honor all nations of people that call America home. And what's wonderful is that most of these people I never met or had heard of, because the schools are the ones that selected them based upon the core values of this project. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for explaining it. And you told me, too, before we started the interview, that you're hoping that the legislators are going to have a new day that we can celebrate next year.
I do.
Tell us about that. We just have a couple minutes left.
Well, we've been doing an elder circle every year from the elders that we honor. This year we've done a youth and elder circle, and we've discussed in May of 2014, between Mother's Day and Father's Day, to have a Youth and Elders Day in Minnesota. And we want to then create transferable activities to bring together the generations, and to celebrate that day of bonding between the young and the old that nurtures our community. So we're in the front end of that, and we're pretty confident we can get the governor to pass that, and we're pretty confident we can get the mayors too.
So it would be sometime between Mother's Day and Father's Day.
Right.
Perfect timing, ideologically. Well, we need to give a website, so if you want to learn more about Larry Long and what he's up to these days, go to www.communitycelebration.org, or they can go to your own website, www.larrylong.org. Thank you so much for coming down. We're going to close with your rousing song that you and the kids wrote, and put that under our credits.
Great.
And this came from what school?
The song Holy Ground,
Right.
referring to,
Right.
that actually came from multiple schools. I've written probably 50 to 60 verses to this song, Holy
Oh
Ground,
my gosh.
through collective songwriting, which is a little bit different than the elder process, where the students become the elders and talk about the world that they envision for themselves. So, but the particular verses you hear here in this recording are really some of my own verses that I wrote about my own life and what gives me hope.
So we will close with Holy Ground. Thank you so much for coming back and
Thanks for
joining me
having me.
again. Good luck in all these exciting projects, and I know there's going to be more news coming out about things going on at many schools, so stay tuned. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back again next week or I'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.
When I was young, I could not speak. My tongue, it was too weak. When the teacher called my name, I tried to talk, but nothing came. From the good book my grandpa read, these words to me he said, take a look at all he did. Shine your light, don't keep it hid. The whole wide world. The whole wide world. The whole wide world depends on you. Out of pain there comes bliss. Guitar strings on your fingertips. You can dance, you can sing, you can soar without wings to where the condor and eagle meet, shooting clouds beneath your feet. Grab your dreams, don't give up, good for nothing, nothing but the whole